Hello and welcome to episode number 131 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I'm your host. I'm Casey Calderman. Join with me, as always, is my co-host, Brian Mensing.
What's up? How's it going?
It's going awesome, Brian. We're entering week number 2, James Stewart month here on Backlot 605. Very excited to talk about this Jimmy Stewart movie here because I'll give a full disclosure right up here at the top. I have not seen any of his work with Alfred Hitchcock. So this is all brand new for me entering this world of the Hitchcock-Stewart collaboration. And I'm stoked to talk about some of the other ones and watch some of the other ones as well. But that's why we needed someone that has actually seen this damn movie before we did this podcast. And why not get a horror YouTuber to do so? Welcome to the show, Kainan Becker from Ghost Pirate Entertainment.
What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Great. Very, very good.
Again, I talk about this whenever we have new guests on the show. I always look at their backgrounds because I'm a weirdo like that and love everything in people's backgrounds. And I'm like, yep, that Day of the Dead poster is awesome. That Phantasm poster is awesome. Your room is awesome, man. And
thanks, man.
So is your YouTube channel. I really dig it.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us a little info on your channel, what you do on there, what you talk about, what your videos are all about?
A lot of it is recommendations. Like, it's kind of evolved, but it's gotten now where, because everybody does reviews, and I do review like whatever newer releases and whatnot. But nobody was really doing, like, when the lockdown first hit, it was like I was always looking for things to watch, and I love horror movies, of course, but I was always looking for things to watch, and I was like, there's no YouTubes out there really giving you recommendation lists like here, on streaming platforms. So that's kind of what it's evolved into. Like, every week I do a recommendation list for whichever streaming service. Like, the one I just released, I think, was Stars, or maybe that's next week. I don't know, but like, I do Netflix. Or no, the one I just did was for Tubi. So every month I do one on Tubi and Shudder, and then the other ones are just kind of depending on what is out there. But kind of, I think of it as almost like a horror TV guide with moving pictures. But then I also review whatever too, and I just kind of do whatever. But it's just about horror being fun, and just the entertainment, the fun of it, I guess. Not taking it quite so serious, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I do look forward to them because I just checked out your Netflix one that you released late last month, early this month, because I'm like, Netflix horror selection just sucks every time. But yeah, you pulled out 10 awesome ones. I'm like, all right, like one that I saw on your list was Cam. And that's one I think I've been pushing Brian to watch for a while.
It's so good. It's so
right, Brian?
Warped and weird.
You need to watch that one.
Yeah.
It's super different.
Yeah.
It's not your normal. I'd say it's horror, but it's more thriller. You know what I mean? It's like, it's more of that warped, mind twisting kind of thriller horror, which
it's
one
of those ones that keeps itching up its way up my list of ones I need to eventually get watched, just because every time I see something with her, and her name is escaping me, but the gal that stars in that, like, every time I've seen her in something, whatever, she hasn't disappointed me to the point where I'm like, oh, all right, fine, I need to get that watched, because there was one she did here, Playlist of Noise, that she just did. It was like a young YA kind of movie, whatever, which was really good. Her Orange is the New Black. I'm sitting there going, I need to get that watched so that Casey will get off my back, because it does look good. I won't argue that it does look good. But I mean, even her bit in Black Mirror, like, I haven't found anything that she's done that I have been disappointed with. So that makes me want to watch it more.
And that's what I was just going to say. You love Black Mirror. This feels like
very much
a feature-length movie of a Black Mirror episode.
Totally. Exactly. Like, as soon as he said it, I started nodding, because I'm like, and she kills it in that Black Mirror type of vibe in this, very much where, like most Black Mirror segments will go like kind of slowly creeping into that insanity. Like, you know what I mean? It'll start off with like, everything's fine. Everything's good,
normal.
Yeah. Almost like Twilight Zone. Like, that's what this does, where it just, as it goes, it starts to, you can actually feel a moment when the movie kind of starts to turn, and you're like, okay, what? What's going on here? And then it just like goes down that rabbit hole. Yeah. Definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm hoping now that it's on Netflix, it sneaks up Brian's watch list, and I'll check his Letterboxd someday and see you finally watched Cam, and hopefully liked it.
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, go check out Kanan's channel, Ghost Pirate Entertainment, YouTube. Awesome recommendations on there. I do go on there, and like you said, you do all the streaming services, and I think that's such a tough thing to find on the internet is people keeping up with doing what's new on streaming services that you might have missed. Something like Cam that came out 3 years ago now, and I think is still trying to catch that audience, and hopefully they'll finally catch up to it here pretty soon. But let's jump into the box office results here as we're kicking off the show. We do have a new #1 movie at the box office.
What?
Still sad numbers though.
Yeah, it's still weird looking at these numbers. Hopefully we'll start to pick up here in the summer here. But #1 is at $8 million, The Wrath of Man, the new Mr. Jason Statham movie, Wrath of Man. I just saw a trailer for this just last week before this movie opened. So that could go into why this movie only made $8 million. The marketing didn't kick off too far ahead of when this movie was released.
Right.
But $8 million Jason Statham action movie, I don't think that's too bad, especially in nearing the end of the pandemic. I don't think that's too bad for this movie.
I can see it.
A Jason Statham, Guy Ritchie action movie.
Yeah.
It's one too that I could see it kind of holding that same number for like multiple weeks in a row. You know what I mean? Like maybe not having any one of those big weeks, but kind of keeping that, going for a minute.
Slow and steady race.
Yeah, because you're right. I didn't even see a trailer for it until I think Mortal Kombat was the first time I saw a trailer for it.
I didn't even see that at Mortal Kombat. I saw Mortal Kombat opening weekend.
Yeah, me too. But it had. I think. Oh, maybe it was in the Earth. Then maybe where I saw it.
I saw it for
It's one of those two.
The movie that is not in the top 5 this week in Separation.
Oh God.
That great horror movie that I know you loved that one too, right?
Dude, I did a full review on it.
Yeah. Ugh.
Ouch. I think you know what? I think that's where I saw the trailer. So then you're right. That's literally a week.
Yeah.
Before it dropped.
Not a whole lot of marketing behind this, which is
No.
I find a little strange since, like Brian said, it's a Guy Ritchie movie too with Jason Statham.
I mean, they're two very well. I mean, whether you love or hate Guy Ritchie, people know who Guy Ritchie is.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And then Jason Statham between just
I mean, he's a huge one of the biggest action stars we have right now.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say between Fast and Furious, his own movies, Crank, and I mean just everything like Expendables. Like, why would you not try to ride that train? I mean, it's not like you're going to be going from the guy that brought you Aladdin, You
could though. That's
could.
a name. That's a name you could have on that though. That's good marketing.
Yeah, you would put more like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels before you put Aladdin on there. Definitely. You would even put the guy that gave you, Sherlock Holmes before you did Aladdin. But
it's just weird though. Everything is just still kind of upside down.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the way stuff's being promoted, it's almost like these these production companies or whatever, almost like they're holding on to them, and then like last minute they're like, screw it, we got to release something, just put it out.
Well, like what we just found out about the whole like changing the name up for Spiral, like that makes no sense.
Oh, what? I didn't hear about this. What?
Yeah. What'd you say?
Yeah,
this breaking news.
No. They Derek actually put this in our chat there, Casey, is that how like last minute or even like during like the release of like Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn, they changed up the name so they could try to per se get the better marketing, if you will.
Yeah.
It's just Spiral : Saw. It's not the Book of Saw anymore. Yes.
I didn't see that.
I even looked on the Cinemark website. The name of it has been changed on the Cinemark website.
Interesting.
Wow.
And that comes out that comes out Friday.
Yeah, that makes sense though. Like I was wondering why they hadn't kind of pushed the Saw element a little bit more on it.
Well, I mean, I didn't mind the Book of Saw kind of thing, just for the simple fact that it was, it's in the universe, if you will, now.
No, I didn't mean that. I just meant like as far as box office goes, I was surprised they weren't kind of utilizing that this is a Saw movie a little more.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
sounds like
or the fact
finally
that
did.
They haven't pushed a whole lot of marketing the last couple months,
Yeah, I'm really not sure about this movie. I honestly don't think it's going to be that good because you're right. There hasn't been a lot of promoting of this, and generally a movie that should be this big or whatever Yeah, exactly. It is a tent pole, especially for horror. You'd think there'd be a little bit more, you know. So
I know the embargoes have dropped on reviews, and it's getting really good reviews.
Is it? I haven't.
I haven't seen it. I mean, with it being that, you know, in a few days here, the fact the embargoes are lifted doesn't surprise me, and I'm good that I'm seeing positive things because, I mean, you know, when I first heard Chris Rock's name attached, I'm like, well, you know, but I was like, after the Danny McBride produced Halloween, I'm like, all right, if the guy's got passion for it and does it justice, I will give it the time of day. And I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise.
Yeah.
So
the early ones.
Well, good and bad. I have seen them all, and
same here.
I'm not going to. I think Jigsaw was the only one that I didn't get to see. I did not see in the theater. Otherwise, I'm not going to make that mistake again because I feel weird not having seen one of 8 of them in the theater. So I'm going to go see this one in the theater.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what this and Quiet Place do here in the next 2 weeks because they were movies that were supposed to come out last year and pushed to this year and have marketing behind them, like a whole year and a half of marketing. So hopefully that helps with these movies and we'll start to see bigger numbers, more than $8 million for opening weekend. I expect Saw will go. I think Saw could push that 20 million. I don't know if it'll reach it. It could push it.
I think it just depends on the promotions. I don't know if it's gotten enough to do that opening weekend.
Yeah, enough people knowing that now it's finally coming out.
Yeah, I mean, like I keep having to look up when it's coming out, and I live and breathe this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like. Quiet Place, I've seen that stupid promotion for it on literally every movie I've seen for the last year and a half. So it's like that is one thing. But with Saw, I mean, we heard about it forever, but I just don't know if I've seen that much. And I don't know if it's because it's going to be released simultaneously on HBO, so they're kind of not as worried.
It's not going to be. It's not. No, because it's a Lionsgate. It's not a Warner Brothers.
I thought it was though. No. That's a Mortal Kombat that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And then Army of Dead is the other one I was thinking of because that's going to be straight to Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how that's going to do.
But that's coming to theaters like a week ahead of time.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Because Army of Dead comes out either this week or next week too.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering how it's going to do because this is the first time Netflix will do a theater release for one of their production movies.
Oh, I totally want to go see that.
Yeah, so I'm really curious on how it does because if this is hopefully goes over well because I'd like to see because Netflix now there's so much production going into their movies or a lot of their movies anyway. It would be nice to see some of them in theaters.
Agreed.
Yeah. Number 2 at the box office, we got Demon Slayer the movie. Last week's number 1, $3 million. Again, anime fans love their anime movies in the theater. This is definitely one of those that is still raking up some good numbers at the box office. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts anymore on this movie. I saw 0 trailers for it, but again, this is an anime movie that anime fans know about, and they're going to go.
It's not a movie for this core audience right here.
Yeah.
Number 3, Mortal Kombat, $2.38 million. I believe it is still on HBO Max too.
Yeah,
I think it's nearing the end of its run on that streaming service. So we'll see what those numbers continue to look like as that goes along. Number 4, Godzilla versus Kong. Just under $2 million.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad sign.
It's good, man. I've seen it twice. I want to go again. Like I love it. It's just a big dumb creature feature, man. Like
it
I love that kind of stuff.
It definitely is that. It's I don't know. I'm still in the middle of the road with it and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know,
it was just fun to me.
Oh yeah, that's just it. There's things about it that it's like, I think they could have done better with both the creatures and definitely the human element.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't go to the movie for the human element.
Yeah, I mean, if I go like critique which is not generally what I do. I generally don't try to like talk about all the like good and bad with movies. My way of reviewing is more of like, how was my experience? What did I think of it? What does it feel like to me? And like try to go from a more layman's perspective instead of being a film critic. This is how I look at things or whatever. And for me, it was exactly what I was going into it, hoping it would be. And like, you're right. There's script issues. There's acting issues. There's, Godzilla was way overshadowed by Kong in this, and I felt like it could have been a little more balanced. But I got what I paid for. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just big dumb monsters, like, you know. Whereas, like, to me, the opposite was Monster Hunters, where I didn't enjoy it, and I was extremely upset because I'm like, you spend this much money to give us literally like no story, no scripting. There's no backstory really at all. And then you have basically one good CGI monster. And then after that, as the movie goes, each one gets worse quality and worse quality. I'm just like, so it didn't even give me the big, dumb creature feature fun either to me. So
they started running out of money towards the end and started making it look like Justice League 2017.
Yeah. Like I don't think I've ever seen a movie where it's that obvious that they literally were running out of budget. Like that final dragon thing in it, just there's no detail to the CGI. Like I've seen so many different CGI guys talk about this is what you don't do. Like this is how bad CGI looks. You know what I mean? So, anyway.
So what he's saying is we need to do a series of bad CGI monsters.
The Scorpion King from Mummy
number
2.
one.
Yeah. Oh,
The Rock.
I can't wait.
I would totally be down for that.
I love that movie, bad CGI and all. I'll take it.
Totally.
Right.
That's just one of those that's just bad enough.
Yeah. Number 5, though, rounding out the box office, Raya and the Last Dragon, $1.87 million. I think this one just started hitting Cinemarks and some other chains that it wasn't in before.
Yep.
Yeah, I know it's finally available at a couple of the theaters near me.
And
have you guys seen it?
I have not, because I wasn't going to drop the $30.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We only had one theater that was playing it, and they were closed for a little bit. So it was already out on Premium Access or whatever for like 3 weeks or something like that by the time West Mall opened up back again. And I'm like, we are halfway through May. I can wait 3 more weeks and watch it for free on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because it'll be once it's
June
done
4th.
with this. Yeah.
Yep, June 4th.
But I've heard it's absolutely gorgeous though.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other animated movie I need to check out is that the new one on Netflix, that Family and the Machines or whatever. I forget the name.
The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah. I need to watch it. I heard that's awesome.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Danny McBride and Maya Rudolph as the mom and dad are so amazing. So amazing. Yes.
That's gonna have to go into my because
it screamed, even though it's not directed or written by, it screams Lord and Miller. Like you can definitely tell their hands were attached to it, because especially like if you think of like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where there's like a little bit of multiple kinds of animation styles going along with this here. Flat out, they do that between regular CGI. There's live action bits in here. I mean, there's a screaming monkey that is literally like they literally pulled it off of YouTube, kind of thing. Also, I mean, it's just bonkers over the top, and it is so much fun. I highly recommend it.
All right, I got to check it out because I have this thing where I have so much research that I do for this channel that I watch almost nothing but horror. But I give myself these momentary breaks where it's like I'll watch just something completely non-horror, and I need to give myself one of those breaks here soon. If you saw the list of movies I watched this past week, it's crazy. It's like 30. I think I had like 30 different horror movies this past week. So
I just need to watch a big animated movie now and just cleanse it.
That's exactly. Because if I don't, that I actually start getting like almost like horror blind. I stop being able to really. It's like noise. You know what I mean? It's like this.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I lose that filter somehow. So that sounds like a good treat for me today.
All right, that's the box office, though. I need to check that animated movie out too. I've heard nothing but awesome things about it, and I love Phil Lord and Chris Miller's animated work.
And in terms of like characters, and I mean, outside of Danny McBride and Maya Rudolph, Eric Andre kind of plays the pseudo like Steve Jobs kind of young entrepreneur kind of thing, whatever. He does well in it. Beck Bennett and Fred Armisen play two of the robots that kind of go awry and are, one of them calls himself Deborah. Like they're not quite sure what they're doing and whatnot. It's overall just, you definitely need to both check it out.
Very cool.
All right, Brian, what do we got for our lone piece of news for the week?
Well, lone now because we kind of went over the Saw thing, which really wasn't news and whatnot. Basically,
I'm excited to hear the Saw thing because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
I literally just found out about it. But Marvel drops a kind of a mega buster trailer of what's to come for Marvel Phase 4. A little bit of, showing us a little tidbits of the Eternals in there, showing us, I don't know, I think there might have been one or two extra cuts that I hadn't seen for Black Widow in there.
Yeah, there was 3 shots.
Yeah.
3 new shots.
A little bit, just overall, just giving us, hey, here's what's going on. Some stuff we already knew about, like, Thor, when's it coming out, stuff like that. Giving us the final name for the new Black Panther 2 for Wakanda Forever. Some new ones we didn't see kind of coming kind of thing. Everybody kind of, some people talking about the fact that, they're not really saying much, but other than the fact that they gave us a teaser at the very end for the Fantastic Four, which I still think to this day that if they don't do John Krasinski and Emily Blunt as the first family, I think they're doing it wrong. But that's just me personally, and in Feige I trust. So
I'm telling you, the Ryan Reynolds pitch of the cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia as the first family of Marvel totally needs to happen.
I'm not gonna see the Thing played by Danny DeVito.
Why not? You could totally pull it off.
Because he's 4 feet tall.
On a good day.
Right, on a good day. He makes more sense being an M&M than he does playing the Thing.
He's like 70 now too, I think.
Yeah, he's
up there.
I was gonna say, he was like in his 30s, 40s, whatever, when he, back in the day, when him and
like Twins. Like when he was in Twins, I think he was like 40.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1988 or 9.
I still to this day would root for a
reunion.
The triplets feature that they talked about with adding Eddie Murphy is the third one.
Oh God, that'd be awesome.
I would totally be down for that. But yes, so I mean, in this trailer, there was, like I said, new stuff to be seen and whatnot. I am intrigued by the Eternals just because of such a weird eclectic cast, kind of like when we got Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
We got Guardians and people like, so the fat guy from Parks and Rec is going to be your lead guy for a Marvel movie. And then you realize, Chris Pratt got ripped.
Yep.
Like
now
personal trainers can perform magic nowadays.
Well, I mean, Kumail Nanjiani, who's just jacked in this trailer.
I know, dude, it's crazy.
Oh,
Joe Rogan talking about how there's no way he's not on steroids. He's like, he came out and said he's like not on steroids. Joe Rogan was like, yeah, there's no way, because Rogan is like, he proudly talks about being on HGH, And
but Joe Rogan doesn't look like Kumail in this movie though either.
That's what I'm saying. Like even Camille, and that's why Joe Rogan's like, there's no way. Like this guy looks perfect. You can't have a perfect physique like that.
But see, the only one reason why I would counter that is because Kumail Nanjiani seems like the type that is very focused and disciplined. Like if he's wanting to do something, he goes out and he does it.
Yeah.
Like if he wants to go out and be funny, he knows how to do that. If he wants to go out and be serious, he knows how to do that. Like I think that there's one thing that I can tell from him is I think he's a very focused and driven individual that he's like, oh, they want me to get jacked for this movie, I will go do it.
There's no way he didn't work. I mean, that's not what they're saying. It's just it's kind of this not talked about Hollywood secret at this point. Like The Rock is on stuff. Like Stallone is the one who kind of came out and publicly was like, well, yeah. I mean, in order for all of us to get and stay in shape the way we do and drop weight the way we do, we're using, medicines. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it used to be the steroids in the butt. It's different, but it's still stuff that like pro athletes couldn't do or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's what all the bodybuilders do. It's, a lot of it's just not talked about. You know what I mean? It's kind of just you know, I don't know.
At least, you know,
Either way, it looks amazing though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's not like they're doing sports and stuff like that to the point where it's
they're not
like,
competing.
you know, right. So I mean, as long as they're being healthy about it, because that's obviously the one thing you always got to keep in mind. It's like, okay, fine, if you are gonna do this, you got to be healthy about it, because otherwise you're only gonna hurt yourself in the long run. Like, yeah, you're getting a payday now. What's that gonna cost you later on down the road? So I would say that it's like, yeah, if they're doing that, you know, fine, just be smart about it.
With the money Marvel puts behind all these actors to get into shape, there's no way that they don't play it safe with Paul Rudd and Chris Pratt and now Kumail, like all these comedy actors that are just kind of everyday dudes, and then like, well, you're going on a training regimen and you can't eat a carb for 7 months. Yeah, I'm sure they play it safe, but I'm sure after they're done filming, it's like, I'm going to pig out and get off all this other crap.
Totally. But I mean,
here's your dietitian.
But that's what I mean. Joe Rogan basically talks about, and like, and a lot of these people that are coming out about this is like, if you do it right, you're actually healthier, you know, because a lot of it is just testosterone. You're just taking supplements and testosterone, and you know, especially as you start to get into your late 30s and 40s and beyond, as a guy, it just naturally starts dipping. So you see a guy like The Rock who's in his 40s looking better than anyone on planet Earth. It's like, dude, he's got to do some stuff. But it doesn't mean it's unhealthy.
He also spends like 14 hours in the gym.
Oh yeah,
that's like, you know, it don't matter where he goes. There is a full, you know, 3-story gym that follows him wherever he goes.
Dude, and his diet is ridiculous. Like, it's like, I forget what it was. It was like when he's in training, it's crazy. It's like a cup of rice, and like it was like a small little piece of chicken and a cup of rice, and that was it. It was just insane. Like, I forget his cutting diet, but
his cheat meals are things of food dreams or nightmares, whatever way you look at it.
I know. I've seen some of those where he's like, "Here's my cheat meal," and he shows up and it's like 30,000 calories.
Yeah, they're awesome. Like, I'm really into the strongman. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all, but like the best in the world is Brian Shaw. He's from the United States. And so I follow him on YouTube, and he's him and Eddie Hall are like super, super famous at this point. It's weird because of YouTube. The two of them have like really rocketed into fame. Like, they both have well over 1 million followers on YouTube and stuff. And I watch Brian Shaw pretty regularly, and he'll do these crazy days where he's like, it's my cheat day, 15,000, 20,000 calories, whatever. I'm going to eat 20,000 calories at Taco Bell. Like, it's literally insane. It's like a whole table just full of food, and he'll nonchalantly just bury it all like it's nothing. And
then 20,000 calories at Taco Bell is probably not that hard.
Yeah. Oh, probably, but you know what I mean. Yeah. But I've actually, his regular diet has actually helped me a lot lose some weight and get in better shape. Just watching, like, his regular daily diet. It's really balanced and it's really healthy. Like, he eats a lot of bison and rice and vegetables, and you know, it's just a really nice, well-rounded diet. It's not like these weird, bizarre out there diets. But it works, you know. Anyway,
there's two things I want to touch on really quick with this trailer, because it was kind of like a recap of everything they did, and then now like what they're doing now.
Yep.
And what the Eternal stuff looks great. The like 3 seconds of footage we got, it looks great. But I like the name changes for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and the Marvels, because the Black Panther one leads me to wonder what that movie is really going to be, because it sounds like with that title, for me, it feels like it's going to be more of like this ensemble movie.
Yeah.
More about the surrounding characters of Black Panther and how they're kind of going to take the lead now that I can't imagine they're going to recast anyone as that. And Chadwick's
they've already come out that they're not recasting for Chadwick Boseman. And then on top of it too, I think especially with the inclusion of the Wakandan warriors in Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think definitely leads towards that, to basically say that
the supporting characters will be the leads. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
The sister, I think, will probably get more of a stage.
I really hope Letitia Wright definitely gets to be able to take that mantle, because number one, I think that she can own it.
I think they'll kind of test it almost, like make her more of a lead, but still kind of like you guys said, have an ensemble, but see how she does, and then possibly because they're, they would love to have another female big time, focal point star. And I think she could do it. I mean,
well, and I sit there back because again, not to rehash and whatnot, but if anybody watches her episode of Black Mirror, again, to know exactly, how serious that she can really get and be and whatnot, I think that she could definitely do that. But I mean, like you said too, to have a supporting cast like say even Denai Guerrera from The Walking Dead. To be that additional support and whatnot, I think absolutely, I think definitely contributes to that.
Yeah.
And then also like what you said, Casey, about changing Captain Marvel 2 into the Marvels, I think is super smart move because of knowing that we're going to get Miss Marvel, which will help basically tie in with the Miss Marvel series that's going to be on Disney Plus. With her being there and then also being incorporated into Captain Marvel 2 or the Marvels here, I think is a very, very smart move on that respect.
Yeah, because that's where the S is. It's just the logo that's on her.
Right.
I thought that was a really cool, like I love graphic design stuff. So immediately I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool way of kind of like saying it's a tandem, but not.
And that's what I feel like a lot of these movies are, especially teasing Fantastic Four at the end. It's like these are all team-up movies. Like everything in Phase 4 is really a team-up movie. We're not getting solo movies anymore. And for it to like maybe end with Fantastic Four, I'm like, that's awesome. Like everybody's been waiting for it. We want Marvel to do their Fantastic Four. And I think they're really pushing that as maybe like we're not doing another Avengers for a while, but you're going to get a Fantastic Four movie done right. And that's our big climax of this phase maybe.
Well, I think the success of Falcon Winter Soldier like really shows too that these team up, like especially a duo, like an old school superhero duo does really well. And like you said, this is like a phase 2. This is a different, and like that would kind of separate it from the past ones. You know what I mean? Is that these are more of these teams, the Batman and Robin almost, So I love it. I think it's all in good hands right now. DC, you're always kind of holding your breath. You're like, they could hit it out of the park, or it could be. But Marvel seems like it's like a factory at this point. You know what I mean? Like they got good writers. Yeah.
After having been away from the MCU for
it's gonna be about 2 years
almost
now.
2 years in the theaters.
2019.
I'm so ready to see a Marvel movie in the theater again.
Yeah,
I needed a break after Infinity War and Endgame, but then I'm like, all right, now let's get back into this. I'm stoked to see what we can do next.
You know what though? I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit over Black Widow at this point though. I'm just like, I want to see a Marvel movie, but these TV shows have killed it so much so that I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, a year ago, Black Widow, I was like, but now at this point, it's like old news, guys.
I'm ready for the passing of the torch to Florence Pugh, and that's kind of it for that movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And Taskmaster, I can't wait for Taskmaster. I've been waiting for him forever.
That's just it. It's just between Taskmaster and I think, we, as we continue to grow the series and continue to grow the movies and whatnot, there's so much now that we have unknown that to me, I think even a more exciting time because now they're going to start interweaving all the stuff here even more, I think, than what they already were doing. Because, I mean, they already talked about how they basically wrote out Doctor Strange out of WandaVision.
Yeah.
So then, and probably for purposely, but that's not to say that what's going to happen going forward. Because when we have the Miss Marvel stuff on Disney Plus, more likely we'll probably see Brie Larson. So
a character from a character from WandaVision is the third of the Marvels, the third character that's in that team up too.
Yeah,
I forget her name in that show.
The
one that got the superpowers. I don't remember her name.
I'm just really excited and in love with the diversity that we're getting.
Right.
Like, I mean, not just with races, but with cultures and just, you know what I mean? It's like, I just love it. It's exciting to me because I'm someone who loves different cultures when it comes to food, because I started out as an artist. Like that's my trade of what I do. is like painting, sculpture, or whatever. And so I just love seeing these different legends and of all these different cultures interwoven, even if they're not called the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like showing, like, I'm totally spacing on the name. The new Marvel movie, the
Shang-Chi.
Thank you. Yeah, like that. It's coming from a whole different perspective, different world, different culture, but yet it still has that Marvel polish on it, and it still kind of has that Marvel flair. And I love that. I just think it's awesome because, like, we kind of got that with, or we did get that with Black Panther. You know, it's like, yeah, Wakanda is not a real place, but it is. You know what I mean? There's real places in the world that resemble the culture there and the food there and the feel of that, you know, and this is kind of the same thing. So if I ramble too much, guys, yell at me, okay?
that's all we do on our show too, is usually just ramble about stuff, especially when there's like one piece of news and we're like, all right, we got to talk about it as much as we can. Then I can't wait for this phase 4. I'm so ready for everything coming out. It's like, give me more Marvel. I need it in my life again.
And the other thing I do appreciate about how Marvel has been taking their stance and whatnot is they're going for people with the creative vision, a little bit outside of the box, like the James Gunns and stuff like that, or like when they did Black Panther, they're like, okay, we're gonna do this right, so that's why we get Ryan Coogler, you know, to do this here. You know,
we get Academy Award-winning director Chloe Zhao doing the Eternals now, and that looks like. The cinematography of that looks like Nomadland on steroids.
Totally. Looks very epic. That was the first thing I thought when I saw that clip.
Yeah, or I mean, you got what his name is, Daniel Cretton that's doing, you know, Shang-Chi, you know, so you're getting people of the right people's perspective behind the lens to give you a much better product on the other side of it.
And that's actually something I think that's super commendable, because I know it's not easy to take all these different things and still tie them together. And yet everything we've seen so far, it still feels Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like, because you know what I'm talking about, like DC is a good example where some things just, they don't feel like they're connected. It's like they jump from this to this. This one's darker. This one's funnier. This one's, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel as tied together. And I love DC, don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean? That's kind of been what the problem with DC has been, is trying to kind of find where their happy place is their brand, their style. You know, I feel like they're starting to go in the right direction now, hopefully, but still. And that's the thing I've always thought is commendable about Marvel, is that they're able to still keep that brand without sticking in this little tiny box.
Yep, exactly. That's that's why I live by that whole "In Feige We Trust," because he's, you know, there's that through line that is able to, like you said, is that you've got way out here, but how do we get it all to, you know? And the great thing is that you know, this has been said before, is, you know, it's not like, you know, they just, go make your movie, wherever the case is. We get all these people in a room. Okay, let's talk about the long term. Let's get all these directors together. Let's get all these writers. Let's get all these writers, directors, so that we can be like, okay, how are we going to do X, Y, and Z? We know we need to do this, this, and this, while, you know, so we can lay the Easter eggs. You're not basically full on just dumping everything in there, but we just need to lay the Easter eggs where they need to be, and then after that, just go make your movie, which is one of the best things I love about it.
And it's amazing because there's never been anything like this done. Because it's not only, like you're saying, all the people in a room, but you also got to have all these actors on the same page, all those assistants on that page, all, you know what I mean? Like all the drivers, you know, like whatever. You literally have to have all this giant corporation at this point of people on this same page. And so you're right. Like there's got to be that thread that holds everything together. And yeah, super. It's a cool thing to see. It's like, if you love film, it is, you know, you don't even, to me, have to be a fan of comic book movies to still think what they're doing. Yeah, and appreciate what they're doing. You know, it's history. It's history making it. And it's changing, you know, it's really changing the face of movies. They have started changing now the face of TV series, showing that you can do something epic. I mean, Netflix has done it too. And so has HBO and whatnot. But I'm just saying, like, they've really taken that torch with Disney and whatnot, and showing like, hey, you can make this thing just as epic as a movie and make it a series.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like I personally, going in to WandaVision, I was skeptical, absolutely loved it. And then I was really skeptical if I was going to like Falcon Winter Soldier, because I just wasn't sure of how that would translate. Because to be honest, I like both those characters going in, but they weren't the two, like, you know, they were kind of the sidekicks, you know? It was like, how are they going to hold up? And it's a whole TV series, and they knocked it out of the park. I'm so excited to have him as our new, you know, Captain America. Like, they set it up, I thought, beautifully. Like, I was super excited about it. And then the way they were able to, I haven't really got to talk about this because I don't get to talk about this on my channel, so I get excited, you know. But like the way they were able to talk about race and culture and you know, all those things on that final episode, and the whole speech he gave, and how it was so culturally relevant without feeling preachy. Like, I thought it was just beautiful writing. Absolutely loved it. Anyway, sorry.
And then to piggyback off the Kevin Feige, we'll get off the Marvel train eventually, people. But we haven't talked to MCU in a while. But like, even with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it feels like this has been built up literally since they first started this entire Marvel universe, especially with, you know, Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier character, of his entire arc through, you know, the first Captain America movie to becoming Winter Soldier to his redemption to where he is now. Right. And really being like one of the last through lines that we have left from those first 4 or 5 movies is really interesting to look at, because he is literally a side character that dies halfway through the first movie he appears in. Right. They could have easily just wrote him off, but no, you can distinctly tell that Kevin Feige had a plan for that moment on where this character was going to go and be the through line to when we eventually get Sam Wilson introduced in Winter Soldier as the new sidekick, and you have, you know, Bucky as the main baddie in that, and then eventually where they end up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You can tell there's been a through line there of, you know, they might not have every single story down to every single line, and this is what it's going to be, but it's like there's a big picture hanging up in Kevin Feige's wall, and he has everything planned out from 2008 till however long he wants to do this thing. And I think that's incredible for on a cinematic level, an achievement of what they can do.
Yeah.
So Kevin Feige's map behind him looks like that Charlie Day meme from us. That's what I picture, except a lot more organized.
Pepe Sylvia's showing up somewhere in the MCU, and I can't wait. All right, are you guys ready to get into Rear Windows?
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve. Oh wait, wrong.
Yes.
Shoot, did I watch the right one? No, I'm kidding.
Wrong series. We'll do that in Christopher Reeve.
I did watch the trailer though. I clicked on. I was trying to watch some documentary stuff, and I clicked on the Christopher Reeves one, and I was just like, "Yeah, that wasn't very good." Kind of missed the whole point of the original.
Let's kind of jump into this, Brian. This was your first time watch for you as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, first time I watched it was last night. I literally I've had this in my brain for less than 24 hours, and I especially with these first time watches and never seen them before. That's what I try to do. I try to watch them as close to when we record as possible, just because.
Yeah,
I want to be able to try to remember as much as I can.
Yeah, as much detail.
Yes. So, but yeah, less than 24 hours this has been in my brain, and I was and I'm like you. I mean, even outside of, like, you made mention here, Casey, about the fact that, you know, you have a very much the blind spot of the Jimmy Stewart, Alfred Hitchcock, you know, collaboration, because there's multiples of them. I have even a bigger blind spot in just saying that I have seen little to no Hitchcock movies, which I will admit to say is pretty much blasphemy on somebody who enjoys film like I do. But just being able to finally sit down and watch this movie, I did the math here earlier today because I was super curious, whatever. A movie that is 67 years old, to be able to finally sit down and watch this movie was absolutely a fantastic watch, and I'm definitely glad that we have an opportunity to speak about this movie.
It's like a master class in how to make film. You know, like, that's the one thing about that, because I've seen this movie, I don't know, definitely a few times. Like it's one of those, like with the Birds and Psycho, that every few years I'll watch them again. So I mean, I've probably seen it 3-4 times at least, but I rewatched it when you guys hit me up. So it was like a week or two ago, whatever, just to make sure I had it fresh in my head. But then I also went and watched some like behind the scenes stuff, and because I was like, since I've already seen this movie a few times, I wanted to dig a little deeper and kind of get a little bit of behind the scenes. And that was the thing that just jumped out at me, is this movie is like sitting through film class. I mean, it's like there's so many things about how to make movies that are done so well in it.
Yeah, and like Brian said, this is 67 years old. This movie feels like it was made yesterday with how tight the story is and how well it is told. Like immediately watching this movie, and after I finished it, I was like, wait, the camera never left his apartment.
Yep.
I'm like, the camera's in the apartment the entire time, and I'm like, you don't notice that when you're watching it, but I just like realized it after I watched it. And that's just like the cinematic tricks of Hitchcock throughout this movie. And that's just one of the magic tricks he uses in this movie, of telling the audience, like, you're in, James Stewart's, you're his point of view the entire movie. If he's left in that apartment this entire time, so are you. We're not leaving there.
Even the audio. Like the only stuff except for the beginning and the end of the movie, there's music, But other than that, everything you hear is only stuff that he would be able to hear. It's all completely his perspective. And this is one of those things where we see found footage movies now. So it's like, okay, his perspective. But there wasn't the found footage stuff then. You know what I mean? Like this was completely groundbreaking stuff that he was doing. And even with all the stuff that we've seen to this day, I still don't. I mean, to me, this is maybe the best this has ever been done, and it's maybe the first this had ever really been done this way.
Yeah, one of the things that I would certainly say about it is that, being that we're talking the 1950s when this thing came out and whatnot, like you can tell that it's definitely a soundstage film. Like it's shot on a soundstage. It's not outdoors or anything like that. But even the fact that we never leave that apartment, we're still so immersed in what he's trying to say, what he's trying to convey, what he's trying to show you, that you lose sight of the fact that it's on a soundstage. That you feel that you are there and that you are in the midst of this, wondering what's going on kind of scenario during this whole time. It's great.
And I think the reason you lose sight like that is because of how natural things are done. Like these little things, like him having the itch inside of the cast. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a cast, but it's maddening. Like a cast drives you nuts. Like you want so bad itch in there. And the way that's portrayed, it's just this little thing, but it's done early on. And right then it's like kind of like giving you this natural, organic feel of everything, that this is like a real environment with this real character that you can identify with. And outside of the apartment, making sure to take the time, especially in the open, where you introduce everybody with no audio, no, you're just literally seeing them all, but they're all doing these natural, everyday kind of things. It's like by the end of that open, you're in it, you're in that room. And like I spent this last year pretty much bedridden. I had 3 surgeries, and then everybody can kind of identify with being locked down now from last year. And it's like, this movie does such a good job of making you feel that claustrophobic feeling. And like, as someone who's literally just gotten through with that, like it really is powerfully done. That was jumped out at me because I'm like, I just got done dealing with this scenario, and like watching it done in this, I was like, man, it's so spot on in this. It's done so well.
I want to touch on that opening scene because, this is the first time watching it, and that tracking shot of, showing the entire neighborhood. We're not, giving a voiceover, any narration, nothing like that, setting up who these people are. But who all these people are by the end of that 3 or 4 minute like opening shot. You just know that neighborhood. You understand the nature of each character that is there. You understand like who lives where, what's property is theirs. All that is all set up within that just opening tracking shot. And everybody in this neighborhood, along with Jimmy Stewart, when you finally get introduced to him as well. Like you just feel like everyone here. And I think that's such a tough thing to do that is done seamlessly here. Like I said, 3 minute long like scene, and you set up all the characters in that with 0 dialogue. It's insane how easy
quick,
he makes it look.
Was it during this opening shot or whatever we got our director cameo, or was that shortly thereafter?
Little after that, he's hanging out with the piano man.
Also, I looked up, I was like, son of a bitch.
There he is.
It's crazy to me because that tracking shot, it still isn't boring. Even though there's no audio, it's still not boring. You do feel like you're being introduced. It doesn't feel like just waiting for credits to roll. And then all these old movies, whenever they would do something even close to that, they would always have narration. Like that was a thing back then. Like narrators all over everything. And for him to be ballsy enough to do this without narration, have confidence enough and pull it off, just it's beautiful. It really is. Like there's so little dialogue throughout this whole movie in general. Like it's like it sets it up in the beginning that hey, there's going to be a lot of this movie done without dialogue. And it's interesting. I was watching a thing, and he got his start in silent films. Like that's where he made his first films, and so it was kind of natural still for him to do a lot of stuff. And it isn't just this movie. He's really kind of famous for that, but expressing dialogue without actually having any actual voices, any actual dialogue.
Yeah, and I think that's again, we talked about, so there's one thing I do want to touch on, especially, we're talking James Stewart movies this month. And him in this movie, again, I talked about this in It's a Wonderful Life and how he's kind of just the everyman. And he does that so well. He's maybe the ultimate epitome of it on the big screen, of the everyman. And that's really what he is here too. And that's so vital to being his point of view this entire time, where he has to kind of just be this everyman. And it's something like, again, Hitchcock is so seamless in all the camera tricks he does, setting up characters with very minimal dialogue and knowing who all the characters are. But on Jimmy Stewart's side, you also got to root for him this entire time and be on his side. Whether you're not, you believe the guy, that's a different story in terms of the storytelling, but you have to be like in his shoes this entire time, in that wheelchair with him this entire time. And that's such a hard thing to do for an actor. You're stuck in this chair this entire time, and it's all through how, I don't know how to describe him in this one. It's just so damn relatable, his character. Like you feel like you could be in that situation right there, and you have nothing else to do during this time except watch your neighbors, and you might stumble across one of them maybe murdering their wife. And that could just happen. It could just happen, but you might also just be bedridden crazy, and you're like, I'm just seeing things now. Maybe that didn't happen. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's what you're saying about being, living in his shoes. The first thing I thought was like, the man never wears shoes. You got to live through this man's cast.
Living in his cast, yeah.
That's what I was kind of getting at too, is like even his wardrobe. Like the fact that he's just in these basic pajamas through the whole thing. I mean, what big star at the time did a whole movie where he's in pajamas? Like he doesn't look all like a superstar. He's just like in these pajamas with it kind of unbuttoned a lot of the time, and then I love the fact that what's her name, the leading actress,
Grace Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How amazing she looks. Like every time she's on screen, she's in like this amazing outfit that was like, world-class designer kind of stuff.
She had to be, because that's what she did.
I know, but I love that juxtaposed to his just wearing a pair of pajamas, and then on top of that, he's even kind of a dick to her,
And I think like that's a total character thing with those two too, because ultimately this is also it's a love story underneath all the suspense thriller stuff going on of, basically, Jimmy Stewart's character finally realizing, he thinks his girlfriend is way too good for him. And that's such a crazy thing to think about, which she might have been.
She is.
But it doesn't matter. She loves him nonetheless, even if he's hanging out in his apartment in his pajamas, and she looks like a freaking movie star. She's just going to come hang out with him in his apartment. And I think that's such a great visual cue for the audience, too, of understanding the characters. And you could have no dialogue in there, too. Like, I would love to watch this movie with no sound on to see how it would play like as a silent movie, because I think it would totally still work in that.
I think a lot of it, I think most of it you'd be able to follow along. I think it's something powerful too with their love story, especially when you look at the times, that because there was like this dynamic in culture at the time of women trying to still show that they could belong in working society, and you know what I mean, like with men. and her like proving and showing him that, hey, I can get down in the dirty with you. You know what I mean? Like I can go over and do this crazy dangerous thing to get evidence, whatever. Because that's kind of what the whole thing about, or the whole thing is about, is him not only thinking that she's too good for him, but that she can't handle the world that he needs to be, like where he lives. You know,
she couldn't go on these adventures with him.
Exactly.
She's too much in her dress to really get her hands in the dirt, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
and
I think it has a cultural statement, is what I was, you know.
Yeah, and that's something I clearly picked up when she and the woman that's kind of taking care of him and giving him like his baths and stuff, when they are like, well, you're stuck in bed, we're gonna go down there and figure out what's going on then, and just get right in there. Like that doesn't feel like something that would have happened during this time, especially in film, of showing that on screen, especially like they're getting right in on the action, in the danger. The most suspenseful scene is the Grace Kelly scene where she goes into the apartment. Like when she starts climbing that ladder, you're like, oh God. And you move up in your seat a little bit. And she's in the house and you see the guy coming back and you're like, you move in your seats a little closer to the TV every single time. Like it's just that ultimate suspense of this movie. And that's obviously what Hitchcock is most known for, is being the master of suspense. And this is probably his clearest example of how damn good he is at it. And it seems so seamless in how he perfects all those suspenseful scenes of what's happening here.
And to take your leading guy like James Stewart and make him this vulnerable character, you know what I mean? Like he's not the hero. You know, he's not the come save the day at the end, save the woman from the, your traditional, he's stuck. He can't do anything. Like, I love that. You still very rarely see that. Like, I mean, that'd be like doing a movie now and taking The Rock and setting him in this wheelchair and being like, you're stuck, you're vulnerable, you can't do anything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I would actually watch that because I want to see him trying to be vulnerable and not actually be able to get up and try to crush someone's skull.
Yeah, no, but at the time, Jimmy Stewart was seen as, he wasn't quite The Rock, but still, he was seen as a leading man. He was, he was a star and he was a hero in a lot of the movies he was in. So I just think that is something that was so rare, and even to this day is still rare,
The other thing I appreciate about the fact that, and like you kind of, Casey, mentioned this, especially like when we get to the Grace Kelly being in the apartment and whatnot, we're slowly inching our way and getting more and more invested in whatnot. Is, when he first starts questioning the guy across the boulevard, nobody believes him. The girlfriend doesn't believe him. The nurse doesn't believe him. His cop friend doesn't believe him. But, just as we progress through the story, there's a little bit of a nugget. Then all of a sudden, oh, I've got my hooks in Grace Kelly. Oh, now I've got my hooks into the nurse and whatnot, And even, he even gets the cop to bite, even though it's a little bit harder for the cop and whatnot, But to the point where, it's enough where he's like, come into my world. Hopefully you can see it how I see it and whatnot, just as much as he's, Hitchcock is doing that to us. Is that, for the most part, at the beginning, we're like, we don't necessarily believe it, because there is that bit of the scene towards the beginning before everybody's involved where you wonder if the wife left with him and while he's sleeping.
And you see a woman walk out of the apartment with the man who Jimmy Stewart believes killed his wife. And as the audience, you're shown that, and he does not see that. And I love that. Like, I saw this quote from Hitchcock. He's like, I love playing the audience like a piano. Yeah. And that's exactly what he does in this movie, because
nothing's ever referenced to that woman before, after, you basically see that one shot. That's it, to the point. And then, it pans over and, Jimmy Stewart's asleep. So you're like, okay, so she left. So this entire time you're like, something, he's wrong, but he's getting all these people to come in along with him and whatnot, to the point where, Grace Kelly almost gets herself injured and whatnot. He gets thrown up, whatnot. It's amazing how much we get pulled into this during, just slowly but surely, just like the characters do.
I don't know if he ever actually does get the cop, though. Because it isn't even until at the very end, he gets the cop to come out, and it just so happens that he catches sort of in the act. You know what I mean? Because before that, the cop never really says, like, because he's always nonchalantly investigating. You know?
Right.
But then there's also that phone call going back to the woman you see for that one shot. There's also the phone call that he's doing, the killer is doing in the other room with his wife in the other room. And that one little thing there gives you that tidbit of like, oh, he's having an affair. You know what I mean? Like there's just these tiny little fragments that if you miss them, you know, you actually miss quite a bit. But it's like when you put those pieces together, you start to go, oh, okay. Now I see what's happening here.
And that's where I feel like a lot of the like you said, the silent elements work so well. Like we don't hear any of the dialogue in these other people's apartments, but just the way they act and interact with each other in their apartments, especially like that scene where he's on the phone call with someone else and the wife walks out of the bedroom and you can immediately tell she's yelling at him. And something's not right, and he was not supposed to be on the phone with whomever. But that goes with all the other characters that live in this neighborhood too. Like the woman who lives right below them, Miss, like, is it Lonely Heart?
Yeah, Lonely Heart.
Yeah.
Like, get zero dialogue from her, and you totally understand her character. You don't know her actual
name. You see a whole story arc with her without any dialogue. Right. You never meet her. That's the other thing I want to get to is that I'm sure you guys felt this too, but there's numerous scenes where you find yourself wanting to zoom in and wanting to go into that room, but you can't. And that makes it feel so real because, like, it's like you feel like you're him straining to see, you know, getting those binoculars and trying to see in a window, but there's a curtain, you know, mostly closed, or you know what I mean? And like, there's that real feeling of not, you're be so close but so far, you know, like you almost could see it, but he can't, you know. And I think he doubts himself too. Like you were talking about that he's got to convince all these characters. And I love that there's also a certain amount of doubt in him. Like even at that one point, he starts to, because I forget what the cop tells him, but he, like, you remember he starts to be like, okay, I guess I am wrong, you know, like.
Like with the chest, like the chest, or the train ticket and everything like that. Like
and the postcard from wherever they were supposed to end up from the wife. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
It's all these cues that you're like, wait, should we trust Jimmy Stewart here? Because obviously we're presented all this evidence like he is too. But there are certain things us as an audience see that he doesn't see either, like the woman walking out of the house that is not the wife. There is even a small scene in here too that I love with Jimmy Stewart is he's so paranoid and like has to watch everybody in the neighborhood all the time, especially when he's trying to figure out if a murder has actually occurred in his neighborhood. But when Grace Kelly comes and just shuts all the blinds on him, and says, no, you're not doing any of this tonight. It's you and me tonight. That's it.
Yep.
Guess what happens on that night? The damn dog dies, and that's because he was not watching what was going on. He could have solved the whole thing in that moment, but because the blinds were closed and he was not paying attention at that time, he could not. And like that's what I love about like the paranoia of his character. Is like you can ultimately feel at that point like he feels that way too. Of like I could have solved this whole thing of what's really happening if I would have been watching out the window at that time, like I was this entire movie.
There was two things that I was struck while watching this with about things that we have now that they didn't have then. One was
cell phones.
Or cell phones, but not just that. I just mean like TVs in general. Like if we were in the house in his shoes, we wouldn't be looking outside.
Yep.
You know, we would never see our neighbors, never see what was going on. And that's such a strange thing to think about that at one time you would have been staring out your windows like you wouldn't be buried in your computer or tablet or TV.
You would have known your neighbors.
Yeah. And like you would have given a care if they were, dead or whatever, And so I thought that was interesting. And the other thing that was interesting to me was how big of a deal it was that she had dinner like delivered to him, you know what I mean? And I was like, that's just DoorDash.
Right.
Ain't no big deal for us, but here's like this rich, expensive thing to get to have this dinner right here in your house,
I know. Immediately, I thought that I was like, wow, we've evolved.
Yeah.
And that's what this like immediately watching it. You're put in James Stewart's shoes, and I thought the same thing. Is like if I was in his situation, I wouldn't be looking out my window. I'd be watching my TV.
Yeah.
Like no one would do that anymore, but it's because of the time and era that this is made that's possible. But everything he's watching though feels also like a TV show because he's giving people backstories of things he's seeing. He's not hearing any of the dialogue of going on in all these apartments.
That is his reality show.
Yeah, and he's making assumptions about people, especially with the woman that's like straight across from him, Miss Torso, the dancer. He makes all these assumptions about her character. And like how she invites men over to her apartment and probably sleeps around with them, and is completely wrong by the end of it. She's married or with this dorky looking soldier with glasses on and talks like in a weird high pitched voice, like the exact opposite of what he thinks is going on in that house. And I think it's so indicative of why this movie is such a great character study of him and everybody out there as well, because it feels like he's watching this TV show of his neighbors and putting all these assumptions together of what's going on. And in the case of the murder, he's right.
Exactly.
But in the case of other characters like Miss Torso, he's completely off base. And I think that's very vital to the entire story of the movie, is having those two dichotomies of two different interpretations of what he sees out there and how he's right about one, wrong about the other.
Exactly. Like, he's not perfect. You know what I mean? Like, he is a human being who could be wrong, but was right and had to still believe his convictions, even though there was doubt and,
And I do love the fact that, when we do get these backstories and these different characters and whatnot, is there's almost like a level of how much detail that certain ones get over other ones. Because there's definitely lots of characters that are out that window there, but we don't get any sort of story whatsoever. Like, we know about the newlyweds, we know a little bit about them, but we don't go much more into it than that. There's the
we did get a great reveal at the end with the newlyweds, though.
But I'm just
like,
saying,
he doesn't have a job by the apartment. Like, that's such a great thing of like, oh, it's these lovey-dovey newlyweds, and then they're fighting by the end of this movie after they have their blinds shut for the entire movie.
But like the downstairs neighbor underneath the dancer and whatnot, we see a little bit of her and whatnot. That basically she goes and reads the newspaper out on the sunbathing and whatnot. Even though there is that one scene that you wonder if she gets killed first, because she's literally just laying there with the newspaper over her head.
Yeah.
But the next door neighbor there with the bird, we see her once or twice, but we really don't go much into it. Then
the dog lady.
There's the couple with the dog and whatnot, the dog basket. But there's more backstory almost to that dog than there is the family that owns the dog, And then, like you said, Miss Lonely Heart gets a whole arc through this, even though she's not basically the main part of the story. Like, you could potentially take her completely out of it here, and it's not going to deter from the movie. She just adds that great element to that movie because, like, for instance, when Grace Kelly is in the apartment and whatnot, all of a sudden we start getting sidetracked by Miss Lonely Heart, and then you almost miss what's going up in the top level kind of thing. So I love the fact that these characters have different levels of investment in them when we're trying to kind of figure out what is going on in the Boulevard.
Exactly. It adds that layer of not sure what to pay attention to. You know what I mean? Like, there's these distractions which would naturally happen. Like, you know what I mean? If this is your reality show, so to speak, you wouldn't be just simply watching this one thing. You'd be distracted by and you paid much more attention to something interesting like Miss Lonely Heart, who's there crying or whatever, than the newlyweds who are just basically always having sex.
I love the simple element that this movie sets up right away too, is showing the thermometer and how hot it is.
Yeah.
That's the reason why all the windows are open in all these apartments.
Yeah.
Like, it's so vital of like how he can peer into everybody's house and see into their lives. It's just because it's so damn hot out and there's no air conditioner, and you have to have your windows open.
Yep.
Such a simple thing, and I love the people that live on the top level across the way that sleep outside because it's so hot.
Yeah.
So hot. They bring their mattress out onto their little balcony out there and sleep out there until it starts raining. And like, that's a fun little character thing too out there of, did we need to see that couple sleeping out there on the little deck? No, but it's such a good character thing. Yeah.
It has that feeling of he's also not only bored and claustrophobic, but he's also hot and itchy and sticky. Mm-hmm. Like, you get into that world he's in where you know, he would be kind of feeling like I said, he was kind of a dick to Grace Kelly, but it's like he's crabby. You know what I mean? There's like all he's grumpy and he's doubting them, and there's so many things going on that he's distracted by that could easily cause him to be, overly paranoid or whatever. Plus, he's probably on morphine or some kind of, or I think she gives him pills at one point, doesn't she? Doesn't his caregiver?
Yeah.
So I mean, he's loopy, probably a little loopy too. Like, I love that there's all those details that just give more and more layers. Stuff that multiple times watching this movie, I always notice these other little things that I might have not noticed the first couple times or whatever.
And the thing in terms of the characters and kind of giving us our atmosphere and everything like that, and you made mention about this earlier, is the fact that we have the musician. That we basically get a movie scored by one of these characters. Like, there isn't really much of a score to this other than the fact that what he gets to hear out his window. What is the musician trying to aspire to become and whatnot? And that musician is what's giving us the overall, atmosphere and music to this film as well.
Mm-hmm.
Who also gets a character arc in this movie with Miss Lonely Heart.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a nice character arc for him too. Like, kind of, without ever hearing dialogue of him, you can feel like he's wondering, what does my music mean and where am I going with this? Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately what helps save Miss Lonely Heart's life, is his music. And when they finally interact at the end of this and he plays her a song, it's like, there's zero dialogue between these two characters, and you understand two different character arcs and why characters come together. It's like, that's damn near impossible to do in a normal movie. How is Hitchcock doing this with two side characters that don't have real names?
It's really science that he uses, like, because we know micro expressions and there's so much dialogue that human beings that we use to communicate with each other besides vocal, but we just always think about just the vocal. We don't think about how much that we express without any words at all. One thing I wanted to mention, because as I was doing stuff this morning, it just hit me. I was like, man, does Grace Kelly have the most amazing smile in this movie? Like, it just lights up the screen, her smile in this movie. Like, it just struck me. I'm just like, it's one of those things, like, no matter what the era is, those leading ladies, so to speak, they're just, you know what I mean? Like, she just has that timeless. It doesn't matter what era you're in, that beautiful smile, and you know what I mean? That it's always going to kind of be thrilling.
It's definitely that classic beauty.
It's that ultimate movie star look.
Yeah.
Like, when they show up on the screen, or like if you saw her down the street and you saw her walk by, you're like, she's a movie star. Yep. You just can see that right away with some, especially in older movies. Especially, you see that, and that's a movie star right there.
Yeah, because our stars are a little more diverse now.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'd argue they still have that it. You know what I mean? That smile, that like glow. Like, some of it is about how the camera captures. But some of it is just certain people have that it.
There's one thing I want to touch on with this movie, and that's how I feel about Psycho as well. Is I've seen Psycho a dozen times, but every time I watch it, I'm still on the edge of my seat of, okay, is Norman's mother going to be the killer this time? I know it's Norman. I obviously know it's him, but watching it this time, could it be different?
Yeah,
and that's what this movie feels like too. Of like, well, maybe he's wrong this time.
Yeah,
maybe the guy didn't kill his wife. Maybe he's just giving into the cabin fever, and it's too hot, and he's on pills, and his leg's hurting, and he's aching, and his mind's going a little crazy. He's believing things that are not there.
Exactly, and like a parallel universe.
Yeah,
like the fiber between the two is just so thin, and that's what's so beautiful about this. Is like at the very, very end, you reach that moment. It could have easily just gone the other way. It wouldn't have had to change that much of the script and whatnot to have her realize, like, the guy comes in and they have this talk, and all of a sudden you realize, like, he didn't, and this whole time it's just been in his head. It could have easily have switched right there.
And that's what feels like so damn brilliant about Hitchcock, is that I still would believe that every single time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this isn't actually what is happening, but even though it's like it's a damn movie, and you know that the movie's not going to change every time you watch it, it's the same movie every time, but like you feel like maybe there's some way set up in this story that it could change this time when I watch it, and I think that's a mark of a totally rewatchable movie. And like that's what I feel like with, I watched, Rear Window here for the first time. It's like, yeah, this is gonna be one I'm gonna put on every couple of years and get that feeling every time I watch it of, well, maybe that guy didn't kill his wife. It could be that he didn't do it. And that's such great suspense in that way too, of like movies nowadays feel very cookie cutter of obviously this guy killed his wife and that's the story. And we need to figure it out. Like you look at modern versions of this exact same story, Disturbia, is maybe the newest example of this type of person locked in a room wondering what's going on across the streets type of movie. And that movie, it's like, no, duh, that's what's happening in this movie. There's no nuance to it like Hitchcock has here, and there's no one like Hitchcock, I guess, that could do this.
I feel like we show too much too.
Yeah,
like that was the thing about this movie and Psycho and a lot of the classics is they could. And I'm not saying we should still do it exactly like they did, but they could express terror and all these things without showing any blood, without showing. I mean, you don't ever see his wife cut up, you don't ever see her die, and yet the mental image of when they're talking about like his nurse or whatever, she's talking about that she's cut up. That he's probably cut her up and buried her all over the place. Just the way the mental image that they give you with the dialogue is awesome. And it really gives you, like, I think in a lot of ways, it makes you more connected to the story. And even because it becomes like when you read, when you read a book, you get really sucked in because you're using your own imagination. It almost has more of that effect. I love my own, I love horror with gore and over the top and all that. But as far as suspense and stuff, a lot of times I think things can be so much more suspenseful if you leave a little bit for the imagination, and I think masters like Hitchcock showed that you can do that. You don't have to show all this stuff.
Oh, I'm right there with you. It's like, I love me a good gory horror movie and whatnot, but sometimes those ones where it's literally off camera and all you see is like the splatter or everything is left to what you hear and stuff like that leads to probably something that's even scarier or more enveloped, because now at that point here, you're trying to picture what is happening. You don't get to see what happens. You get to see, okay, this is what I think is happening. Because I would say probably one of the most recent ones that I saw that was like a werewolf based and whatnot, 95% of what happens, you never see. So you have to be left with, what happened exactly? So I love that about this here.
What movie are you talking about? Are you talking about
what was it?
I know. I think I know what you're talking about.
It's the
new one. It just came.
The daughter's son is a werewolf.
Oh, maybe it's
not the daughter. The woman's son. Excuse me.
I was thinking of the one where you think it's a werewolf the whole time, the new one, and then at the end you find out that it's not really a werewolf.
Oh, is that the Snow Hollow?
Yeah. Yep.
That was the one that, Casey made sure.
Oh, dude, that's probably a big spoiler for anybody listening. Because if you haven't seen it, go see that movie. Yeah. That movie is awesome. The same with another one that I just saw. Oh, that's actually another example of Hunter x Hunter. Have you guys seen Hunter x Hunter?
Not yet, no.
That's another one of those movies where you do see a whole lot of gore and whatnot at the end, but for most of the movie, everything is in your head. You're not sure of what's happening. It's like every time you think you're going to see what's actually going on, it pulls away, and it just keeps teasing you and leaving your imagination to run. And by the end, you're like, man, there could be anything from nothing to like the most crazy werewolf thing you've ever seen to like somewhere in between. Like it could be literally any scenario, and then it throws a hook that you weren't even expecting. You know what I mean? Like it's a brilliant movie, man. Hunter x Hunter is super good. Unfortunately, it's one of those 2020 indie releases that didn't get a lot of like play. But it is on Hulu right now, and I did do a full review. So anybody wants to hear me talk about it more. So
I figured it out. It was the last Jason Blum one that they did. Uh-oh.
Is that just his end?
Yeah, Brian, your audio's cutting in and out if you want to jump out and jump back in. Stupid internet. See, that's why I know Jimmy Stewart just looked out the window all the time. Didn't have to deal with that.
Yep.
But the point I was going to bring up after this, I'm sure Brian has the title of the movie he was talking about, is how many movies like were influenced by this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I looked this up right beforehand because they mentioned the term Peeping Tom during this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, did this come out after Peeping Tom or
no, it was before? I think
like 6 years before that or something.
Yeah.
Like that. And I'm like, that clearly took that term and heightened it to this new level with Peeping Tom in a different way of, dealing with that type of character.
And Peeping Tom is what led to all the slasher stuff like Friday the 13th, Black Christmas, Halloween. So like, if you look at that, it's like, wow, the lineage of all that goes back to this.
Here. Yeah. And even Psycho is like the earliest version of a slasher movie, and like Hitchcock has all these influences, and like the one I always think of for here with Rear Window is Fright Night is like the vampire version of Rear Window in a way, and like that goes back to this too, is like how many different types of movies are influenced just by what Hitchcock was doing back 70 years ago. Now it doesn't, that seems so weird that the 50s was 70 years ago, but yeah, that it's so influential of what he was doing at this time.
Well, like I was even mentioning found footage.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of found footage element to this because you're seeing it from like his perspective through the whole thing, which is what makes found footage scary, is the fact that it feels like you're there because it's all through the perspective of the characters, which is, what he did with this. He didn't just, it wasn't like you saw what he saw, but you basically did. You were through Jimmy's eyes basically through the whole thing.
I think we'll kind of go into our final thoughts and then my last question for this here. So let's start off, Brian. You're back on. What are your final thoughts after watching Rear Window for the first time? Is this going to be a rewatch for you down the road?
Oh no,
your audio's not working. We'll save his Brian's thoughts.
Everybody, we were talking about silent films, so we're gonna just watch him and see if we can figure out what he's saying.
Yeah. Go through your mannerisms, Brian.
Sign language.
Yeah. Kane, what are your final thoughts on?
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
yeah, there you are. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so I don't know why it just did that. It defaulted to my microphone. That's not on. No, I would certainly say I think is this a rewatch for me? Absolutely, it's going to be a rewatch for me. It's one of those ones where just because as you try to build your library, I try to build my library as cheaply as possible. That I probably wait till it's on sale and whatnot, but definitely worth the money to invest in this movie and whatnot. A great performance by everybody around. I mean, even to the point where we've got a bunch of characters with no real names. Mm-hmm. They themselves definitely hold their own in this film and whatnot. Definitely one I would want to try to get in. I wouldn't necessarily say rotation because rotation is horrible for me. But something that I would definitely want to go back and rewatch easily again, because I imagine there's probably things that I didn't pick up the first time that I would pick up again. And it's one of those ones where I probably would find more Easter eggs as I continue to watch it.
Mm-hmm. I would, my 2 cents is first, if you're looking to watch it and you want to save a few bucks, you can get streaming for a couple bucks, but there is an archive of classic movies. It's like legal and it's free. If you just type in this movie, it's where I found it. A bunch of the old classics. You're not going to get it in HD. It's going to be in like generic quality or whatever, but it's free to stream. And there's a ton of other free, great classic horror movies that people never realize, but they're part of the National Archive, and you can just stream them. You just got to search for them. But as far as me, I always go through these Hitchcock phases every little while. Like this past summer at the drive-ins where I live, they had a Psycho with the birds. So I went and saw that double feature. And so I was stoked when you guys mentioned this because I'm like, it's been a minute since I watched that one. And this one and 13 Steps, like those four are like the Hitchcock like rotation. You know, like every couple of years, I just got to kind of rewatch that master class of movies. It's, you know, just like I said, it literally is like going to a film class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this feels like when I was watching it this time, felt like the first time I watched Psycho, and now it's one of my favorite movies ever. Like that's what this movie feels like. The exact same feeling like after finishing this. I'm like, that feels like when I watched Psycho for the first time. That's what this is going to feel like when I continue to watch this and rewatches of how just damn good and suspenseful it is, and how great all the characters are, even with limited dialogue, especially with the side characters. It's just, it is like you said, it feels like a film class. You're just sitting there for 2 hours, and this is just a film class for the day. And yeah, it's such a damn good movie, and one that I'm going to throw into the Hitchcock rotation too. Of if I'm going to watch Psycho, I'll probably watch Rear Window right after again, because it's just that damn good.
It's one of those movies too that like reminds me that film is an art form. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Because we had a lot of like popcorn movies and stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's still creative, it's still art, whatever. But there's those ones that almost feel like a painting, you know, that's like high end, you know, super skill, like off the charts, like, you know, literally an artistic genius kind of thing. And this is one of those movies. High Noon is another one of the Jimmy movies that has that feel. Before we go, what are the other? Because you said you did It's a Wonderful Life last week. So what are the other ones you're doing for the rest of May?
We're doing Anatomy of Murder next, just because I've never seen it, and is like one of my favorite movie posters ever. I just love that damn poster. It's so good, and I've never seen the movie.
You're gonna love it.
And then we're doing The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, because it's a Western I have also never seen. I'm like, I need to finally have a reason to watch that. So those are the next
awesome. That's probably. I think Liberty Valance is what he considered to be his greatest film. I know it was one of the ones that he thought he was like his best. I love that movie. My dad loved westerns, like John Wayne westerns and stuff, and that was one of the ones we used to watch over and over. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I'm stoked to finally get that one watched. Westerns is maybe my biggest blind spot in all movies, so it's like need to hit some of the big ones, and that's definitely a big one that's been on my list forever. But last question I do have, it's the one I always leave us off on. If you were going to pair Rear Window with another movie, let's go through it at the drive-in, because we talked about drive-ins and summer's coming around here in South Dakota. Drive-ins are coming back. What's your drive-in double feature with Rear Window? I'll let you guys think. I have mine already. So I'll do Rear Window first, and then I'm going to do probably the biggest remake of Rear Window, which is Brian De Palma's Body Double, right after. So you're going to do Rear Window, Body Double, back-to-back, De Palma, Hitchcock. Yeah, that's a perfect double feature for me for this movie.
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you're trying to pair with. I guess I would probably just kind of go with something that felt along the lines of what I saw last summer when I went and saw Psycho and The Birds. So I would go 13 Steps, because it's just another one of those really masterfully done, same era, you know, Hitchcock movies. That is one that's not as talked about either. Because this one, that's the thing about Rear Window. Psycho is horror. You know what I mean? Like, that is a definite horror movie. This one is more horror adjacent. It's more into the thriller category. And 13 Steps is kind of more of that too. It's even more into the mystery thriller, but it still has a lot of that, like, you know, on the edge of your seat, not sure what's going to happen, and a lot of twists and turns. And so I think it would be a good combo. Now I got to go watch it. It's been a while since I watched that one. I actually own this big box set of Hitchcock movies that I work through every now and then.
Brian, what do you got?
As I get to thinking about it here, you know, probably in the staying in the vein of Jimmy here is probably going with like Vertigo.
Oh, I'd go to that.
Because I mean, you know, and the good reason for me to do that is I still need to watch Vertigo too. So I mean,
you never seen Vertigo?
Yeah, you remember the part where I said I have a really big blind spot for Hitchcock movies?
What are the Hitchcock movies you've seen?
Dude, Vertigo is so awesome, man.
Rear Window.
That's it. This is your first Hitchcock?
Yeah, I've never seen The
Whoa!
Bird. I've never seen. No, I
didn't
mean,
know that.
no,
You never seen Psycho?
no. I've never seen the original. I've never seen the remake. I've never
don't
seen
watch
the
the
sequel.
remake.
No, I know. No, I'm saying I've never seen the sequels. You know,
Yeah, the
that's
remake is one of the. I actually just used it in a video I was doing. Like literally, the Psycho '98 remake is one of the worst movies ever made.
Mhm.
It is literally shot for shot the exact same movie, but yet there's a few weird changes they make that make it even worse. But it's just like the most pointless thing ever done because it's literally shot for shot. Like they actually frame up and have the same mannerisms, the same dialogue. Like it's so like, it's maddening.
It's
So
so bad.
So you're saying not a good
bad.
Vince Vaughn movie?
He's horrible in it.
It's the worst thing I think he's probably done. Yeah. It's so pointless.
He's
just like,
so bad in the movie.
And then that's the other thing. I mean, you're not going to live up to no matter what. You're not going to be that. So it's like trying to do a shot for shot, but not being able to even pull off the same power. And it's just. I mean, Anthony Perkins. There is no other. I mean, he is Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
That I would recommend that be one of the next movies you watch is Psycho. Because it's so groundbreaking. And after just watching Rear Window, I think it would be really cool for you to see it through, like, after having this whole conversation and everything, to see Psycho through that same lens. Because, like, The Birds is awesome. Like, The Birds is very cool. But The Birds is also starts to go into that cheesy territory where they start to try to do a little bit too much with special effects that are really dated now. You know, whereas Psycho is much more like this movie. You know, it's very dialogue, very suspense-driven. Mm-hmm. They don't try to go and show you too much. Just absolutely amazing pacing. Like, the pacing of Psycho it's honestly one of the best-paced movies I think ever done. It's like it's a slow burn without ever feeling slow.
Yep.
Like, it's crazy. It's one of those movies that just doesn't. I don't think. Like, it's one of those strange movies that even young people, 19, 20, whatever, appreciate. And that's rare because usually it's like if it's black and white, you lose them. You know what I mean? But, I mean, I've talked to teenagers that still love Psycho. Like, at the drive-ins. I mean, it was full. And I looked around, and there were some people my age, but a huge amount of the crowd there was young. Like, you know, late teens, early 20s to see Psycho and the Birds. I was like, this is awesome. So.
Yeah. Brian, you need to watch Psycho. We'll get you a copy if you do not have a digital copy. I will get you a copy of Psycho and the Birds too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend both, but if you're only going to watch one, definitely Psycho. Like, it's so good. It's led to everything, man. I mean, like, it is like the grandfather, so to speak, of huge amount of what we know as horror today. Like, you'll see so many things in that movie where you're like, dude, that's like what so-and-so movie did. Like that right there, the pacing right there, that shot right there is, you know, been done in this movie. You know, Saw, you said that you really appreciate Saw. There's a bunch of things throughout it, the suspense elements and stuff that you can clearly see, you know, were inspired by, you know, the way it was shot and the way it was paced out and the way you get the reveal, so to speak, you know. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. I just love it. It's such a great movie.
Are you sold yet, Brian?
No, I was sold already.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I've learned about doing this for as long as we've been doing this, you know, I'm like, oh, I've seen this many movies. No, I've seen this many movies.
And I feel that way. Like, I do, you know, I'll watch 20, 30 movies a week and still feel like, like I just recently, there's on Shudder. I'm a huge fan of Shudder, by the way. A lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing good on Shudder because they don't recognize the names of stuff. And I'm like, I beg to differ because there's tons of movies that are just ones that are just barely off the radar, but they're masterpieces, you know. But there's a documentary that is dropped on there. It's I think it's In Darkness or Into Darkness.
In Search of Darkness.
In Search of Darkness.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's two. It's the first one, and then they just released the second one, and they're each 4 hours long. I don't know if you guys have watched them.
Yep. We watched both of them.
Amazing. And after watching them, I'm just like, I don't know anything, man. I thought I'd seen most of the 80s movies. And I'm like, I have this list on my phone now, and it's got to be 30, 40 movies at least that I had never even heard of, much less seen. So now I'm like picking through them.
I hadn't watched the first one, and I've got this goal of my 2021 of all my like Netflix and Hulu. I've got Shudder on there, and everything like that of releases and whatnot. So I'm like, before I can watch part 2, I have to watch part 1.
Yeah.
Now, but yeah, I did that. Like part 1, I enjoyed because it definitely hit on a lot of points. Me, I'm not the horror guy like Casey is, but it hit on a lot of things. Like, oh, I know this, and this. Started watching part 2, and I'm like, holy crap! Talk about some deep cuts of stuff that like I didn't know and whatnot. But no, 4.5 hour documentaries while we were working on doing the Godfather series.
Oh yeah, I just listened to that. I just listened to the podcast.
That week was doing Godfather 2, Godfather 3, The Conversation, while doing parts 1 of that and part 2 of In Search of Darkness. That was a rough week.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, it was funny. I'm listening to your guys' podcast, and I was just wanting to jump into the conversation because I was just like, there's so many things. I love the Godfather movies. Well, minus the third one, of course, but yeah. So like, you guys did a really good job of a conversation, because I know I'm listening to a good podcast and I'm invested in it when I find myself wanting to like talk, be like, hey, yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Shut up, you're saying it wrong.
But what about this part right here? What about that? I do that too. I'm like sitting there at work and I want to chime in sometimes. Like, don't want to look like a weirdo talking with my headphones on.
Yeah, talking to yourself. Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like, I really love podcasts.
All right, so let's kind of wrap this thing up. Like we said, I'm going to throw it out here. Next week, Anatomy of Murder. Stoked to finally watch this. Like I said, this is one of my favorite posters ever. It's just so damn good, and I can't wait to watch this movie. First time watch here for me. And again, we had to mix up the Hitchcock in here as well, so we had to get away from that Hitchcockian. We did the Hitchcock with Through a Window. Now we're going to do Anatomy of Murder here with Jimmy Stewart next week. So be on the lookout for that. But if you want to check out this podcast and anything else we are doing, head over to backlot605.com. Then you can also subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon Music. And you can see us on YouTube as well. And Brian, where can they find us on social media?
On the social medias, they can check us out: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out at Backlot605. It's all the same for across the board. Also, in regards to Facebook, we have the South Dakota Film Community Group. Join the conversation. We like to throw stuff out there, what people are watching, what people are thinking of news and stuff that's going on and whatnot. Just like to have a good old fun time and trying to talk about movies. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go join that if you haven't. And also think about joining our Patreon. Then we'll throw out a shameless plug to our Patreon, patreon.com/backlot605. Special shout out to our patrons: Logan, Blake, Andy, Derek, Lou, Corey, Darren. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. You guys will get a bonus episode this month for Jimmy Stewart. We're going to cover the other major Hitchcock movie Brian mentioned, Vertigo, on that bonus episode. So be on the lookout.
I don't know why I mentioned Vertigo.
Yeah. Be on the lookout for that later on this month. But before we leave, let's throw it off to our guest, Kainan Becker. Where can they find you online? Where can they find you on the YouTube sphere?
Ghost Pirate Entertainment. You can find me on YouTube under Ghost Pirate Entertainment, as well as Instagram, Facebook. We have a Facebook group. The Facebook group is great because it's the channel, but mostly it's just curated by the channel. So I just basically curate it, but it's kind of free for all to. The same with Discord. I'm on Discord. You can also find me under Kainan Becker on Twitter, on Instagram, where I have my art, as well as Facebook. So if you want to see my art, go to Kainan Becker on the social media. If you want to see the channel of horror craziness, then it's Ghost Pirate Entertainment. Nice. And you can also email me at KainanBecker@yahoo.com if you want to yell at me.
Don't do that. Leave nice comments on his videos.
Man, trolls are fun, dude.
The world is a crazy place. Be nice on the internet, damn it.
I get some crazy trolls. I'm not even that big.
I thought that's what the internet was for, just to shit on people. That's why Al Gore invented it, right?
Al Gore would do that an evil thing, wouldn't he?
That global warming.
Yeah. Damn Al Gore. All right, man. Kainan, this has been awesome. We'll have to have you back on sometime in the future. Yeah.
We should plan something for October.
We have something planned. Let's talk off air on it. Let's do that. Does that work for you? Let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll tease something here. But yeah, let's plan on something in October. But again, go check out Kainan online on all the channels there. And again, thank you all for listening to the show. And we'll check you out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.
Bye-bye.